My dad, Richard A. Mayer, was born on April 10, 1928, to Fay and Bert Mayer of Philadelphia. My dad grew up in an unusual household inasmuch as both parents worked full-time. Both my grandparents were in the retail farrier business, selling mink coats and other animal fur coats, which was a very popular product among the upper middle class. My father was born right before the Depression of 1929, but his parents managed to keep their job during the Depression, although they did take large pay cuts. Some of my dad's favorite memories were of his family's trips to the shore at Atlantic City. They would spend up to a month in the summer and 1 week between Christmas and New Year's. His family was a very dapper-looking group, as we see here in this photo taken about 1933. My dad was too young to serve in World War II, but did enlist in the Navy in 1946 at 18 years of age. He never served overseas, but was stationed in Hawaii for a short time. He also was called up for the Korean conflict, but stayed stateside during his call-up. He married my mother in 1952 and had 3 children. My dad had been in the lighting business and took a job with Lithonia as a regional sales manager in Los Angeles and moved our family to California. Unfortunately, the marriage did not last, and my parents were divorced in 1965. He married again shortly after the divorce, and Judy and my dad were married until his death. My dad loved to cruise with his wife and later with his children and grandchildren. He would visit me in Philadelphia at least once a year, and my sister in Israel once a year as well. He continued that habit until he was 89 years old. He had an interesting life in Los Angeles and entered the toy industry, first working for Revell Models and then with Mattel, involved in the Hot Wheels phenomena of the 60s. Being in Los Angeles, he managed to meet many Hollywood celebrities and made some friends in the industry as well, most notably Roz Burrell, Milton Berle's sister. He met Milton on numerous occasions and was invited to Milton's daughter's wedding, Vicky, in 1968. He spoke about the wedding with me a few years ago.
You wanted to hear about the Milton Berle wedding. The wedding was Vicky Burrell, who was an adopted daughter of Milton. I don't remember his name. She married a guy from Texas who was a real Texan. I mean, we were in, because of our friendship with Roz, Milton's sister, we were invited to the wedding. The wedding was at the Hillcrest Country Club. And they had like an enclosed porch type of thing, which was quite large. And they set up seats so that it was in rows, as like in the theater or something. When Judy and I came in, there was an usher, and we sat down, and we could see that there were a lot of celebrities there. So we just arbitrarily sat down, and who comes in and sits down right next to us is Don Rickles and his wife. And they were really nice. Hello, how are you? How are you related? You know, that type of stuff, the things you do at a wedding. And then in front of us, about 4 or 5 rows, was a black lady. And it was Burrell, housekeeper, and she had been with the family for a long, long time. And she turned around and she saw Don Rickles, and she said something like, "Well, Mr. Don, how are you?" And he said, an inimitable Don Rickles said, "Hilda," or whatever her name is, "Hilda, you look terrific. What are you dressed for, a hanging?" And I thought, oh my God, this is going to be some day. But he introduces me to Phil Silvers, Harry Ritz. He introduces me to Lucy, Jack Lemmon, Milton, or somebody says, come over here and sit here. So it was like an alcove off of this, and they sit down with their drinks, and I had a scotch, and they sit down, and I'm the only civilian. And they start working on me, you know, not having anything to do with me, but trying to get me to laugh more and more. And I will tell you that at one point I hurt from laughing. I mean, one didn't think of the other. I'm just no 4-letter words. I mean, they're real, because that's their stock and trade. I mean, that's just the way they talk.
After living in several California locations, including the Palm Springs area, he and Judy settled into a beautiful spot on a lake in the Sacramento area. It was here 4 years ago that he was diagnosed with colon cancer. He tolerated the chemo well, but between the chemo and his advanced age, he began his slow decline. By May 2020, his oncologist told him that the fight was over and he should contact hospice. He slowly became more and more fatigued and quietly passed away just after midnight on July 21st, 2020. My dad was known for his quick wit and great sense of humor. When it was time to decide what went on his stone, we wanted to make sure that his humor would follow him for all who might visit. My dad would always want you to leave laughing, so here's a video clip of his famous Once Upon a Time storytelling for his then 4-year-old grandson, Colin.
Once upon a time. Now listen carefully.
Okay, once upon a time.
Once upon a time.
That wasn't deep.
Are you going to listen to the story or aren't you?
You guys want to eat that food. Once upon a time.
You're such a difficult child.
Once upon a time.
Once, says right so far?
Yeah.
Upon
A time.
a time, right?
Yeah.
Once upon a time.
He was my best friend, and I think about him every day. Happy birthday, Dad.